It's 40 years since the last referendum in Britain on membership of the then common market. In the next 12 months, the British will vote again on membership of the European Union. But all the talk this week and in coming weeks is what is going to happen on the vote. Where do the British people stand? Jenan Ganesh, you've looked at where the parties stack up. Obviously, the new Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has expressed some scepticism about British membership. What do you think is going to be decisive?
Well, what won't be decisive is almost everything we're talking about this summer, which is the election of Jeremy Corbyn, who is personally very Eurosceptic, probably privately would contemplate leaving the European Union for left-wing reasons. Then lots of technical things which people are obsessed with, like whether the government observes the so-called Purdah rule, which prevents officials from campaigning, whether Conservative Party headquarters joins in the campaign one way or the other, the precise wording of the ballot question. People in Westminster have been gripped by all of this stuff, and I don't think any of it will be decisive. What will be decisive is the innate risk aversion of people generally and the British people in particular.
And of course, this is a subject which is viewed with enormous interest by the global investment banks, the investors in the city, by Britain's fellow members of the European Union, and of course America and China.
It's the question that comes up from foreign readers who get in touch with me, from people in the city who work on risk planning, and they take a lead from what we talk about in Westminster. So when we get excited about a technicality like the Purdah rule, they think it's significant as well.
Purdah being when the government says we're actually going to observe a period of silence
in the run-up to the voting day.
Well, let's come back to Jeremy Corbyn. He is a very different figure in the Labour Party from the previous leader, Ed Miliband, who was staunchly pro-European.
Yeah, you could see that there's actually been a progressive, slight decline in the level of European commitment in recent Labour leaders. So Tony Blair, famously pro-European, wanted to get this country into the euro. Gordon Brown, a bit less pro-European than Tony Blair, famously sceptical about the euro. Ed Miliband, again, quite critical of aspects of the European Union. Free movement seemed to trouble him, whether it had an impact on people at the low-paid end of society. And now Jeremy Corbyn, who hasn't said he wants to leave, and certainly won't commit the party to leave, but he himself has views which are quite hostile to European integration. He sees it, as the left often have, as a capitalist club. So Labour have gone some way away from where they were a decade ago, which was an unambiguously pro-European party.
And you're someone who gets into the weeds, very granular, expert on British politics and campaigns, and yet you're saying actually it doesn't really matter who fronts the campaign.
I don't think any of the identity of who fronts either the Leave campaign or the Remain campaign, the financing available to them, I think all of this stuff roughly cancels each other out. And what matters is, can the Leave campaign persuade people that if we leave, they will be materially better off? It's not enough to say we'll be no worse off, because otherwise why would you go through the upheaval? They have to clear a very high evidential burden to show that we'd be better off if we left the European Union. And my political hunch is that you can almost never do that. And if you look at referendums in this country, whether it was the last EEC referendum in '75, which you alluded to, or the Scottish referendum last year, or the AV referendum in 2011.
The alternative vote, changing the voting system.
The voting system. The status quo always wins. Not because the status quo is necessarily right, but because the burden on the other side to prove that things would be better off is almost impossible to clear.
So the key point for people here in Britain and outside in the world is to say, actually, it comes down to risk aversion.
Yes.
It's too risky to change course, to abandon the status quo.
Yes, and if you are pro-Britain staying in, don't assume that this summer has changed anything. I think before the summer, before Jeremy Corbyn, we were unlikely to leave, and we're now unlikely to leave.
So, no poetry, just prose.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid of playing what the Leave campaign will call the fear card or the negativity card. It's the surest way to win a referendum.
Well, that won't be the last vote that last word that you and I have, Jenan, on this subject, but thank you so much.
Thank you.